Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Mindshifters Radio with your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife Jeannie. Michael and Jeannie share with you the wisdom of the ancient Aramaic internal process of forgiveness. They offer tools and support 5 days a week. They will support you in building a solid foundation within yourself to live in pure love. In Aramaic, Rachma. Michael is the author of So Why Is This Happening to Me Again? For more information on Michael and Jeannie, please visit www.whyagain.com. And now your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael and Jeannie Ryce.
To the brightness within you and the truth that is rooted within me.
My apology, but I don't know whether you've heard anything anybody said so far. Jeannie had the phone, and I guess the mute button was hit, so I don't know if you heard her introduction or you heard what I have to say, or our apology. Thank you in the chat room for letting us know you couldn't hear us. In any event, our invitation, as we do every day, is to invite you to join us in learning forgiveness, to remove from your mind every form of hostility or fear that you have ever experienced, and to come back to the full experience of your human life. And if you have any question about what a human life is, we just invite you to hold a newborn child. You'll know exactly what it is. We talked about Lent and the Lenten season being a lead-up to a very precious awakening time, or a resurrection. The real resurrection is resurrecting from the death of hostility and fear into the life of your awesome presence, the human life that you have that the world specializes in taking away from you. And so we have, I'm not sure if any of what I've said so far has come through, so I'll just repeat a little bit of it, and we'll open the gates for callers, and we'll see where it goes. But the idea of Lent being to make people talk about it in terms of sacrifice, like it's giving something up, but actually the word sacrifice in its origins means to make sacred. So what we're going to invite you to do is to access any part of your mind that holds any form of hostility or fear, and access it and bring it to the presence of your human beingness, to the presence of love, thereby making it sacred, thereby transmuting it. And as you give up hostility and fear, there is a real awakening that happens when you realize that the true human life that you possess is that of the active presence of love. And some folks yesterday made the suggestion we pick up and do 5 worksheets a day through Lent, 40 days. 40 days in the desert, which the worksheet takes you to your unconscious mind, which is a code word. The word desert is a code word for the unconscious. And so we invite you to spend the next 40 days with us in the desert, looking at your own unconscious dynamics, working through those unconscious dynamics, and awakening to your true human beingness. So Dr. Tim is with us, and David is with us. Good morning, or good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
How'd the support group go last night?
Beautifully. It was a wonderful experience. We had to run a little over. People were so involved in the one worksheet process that was happening, and all of the good material that was coming up for that person, and all of the other side issues that were getting stimulated in the people that were watching that one person do their worksheet. It was just very powerful. It was a good, solid intro up into the intermission of your lecture, Communication. Did you hear what I think I said? And next week, when we finish that lecture, we'll actually help people step through writing a responsibility communication letter or statement to someone. But this week we listened to that and then explained the worksheet process to a new person who was there, and then somebody volunteered to do a worksheet, and it was just very powerful. Very powerful. The new person that was there said, as he was leaving, "Let me just say this. I really need this in my life right now." So
timing is everything, right?
Yeah, I said, well, it's kind of funny how that happens. If you keep your eyes open, you'll find that the Rolling Stones really, really knew what they were saying when they said you can't always get what you want, but you can get what you need. So
the universe's specialty is to deliver it to us, that's for sure. And so are there any particular insights that came out of the worksheet or anything to share that might inspire people to make the commitment to start today and do those 5 worksheets today for 40 days?
Well, the overview of the worksheet the person was trying to do, this is a person who's done quite a few worksheets and been to the group consistently for a couple of years now, and has had some wonderful testimonials about how it has helped his relationships and helped him deal with his anger differently. And So he was trying to do a worksheet on a situation that came up recently, and he was doing the worksheet from the position of being happy with himself because he hasn't gotten really angry at the person who trashed an apartment that he was renting to them. But as he started doing the worksheet, he uncovered so much anger that he started choking up and needed to get a drink of water, and he had a tickle in his throat that lasted through most of the rest of the worksheet. And as we've talked about before, it's so valuable to be doing the worksheet process in a loving, supportive environment like this, because several other people in the group made supportive comments and noticed things about his demeanor and his energy level, which helped him access the fact that he really was agitated, and helped him clarify that he had a lot more anger stirred up than he realized. And at the beginning of the worksheet, he was certain that his anger was because this person had done something to the apartment he was renting, and that all of those things, holes in the wall or whatever, were going to require him to put out money, his money, to fix what somebody else had done, the damage someone else had done. And because of that, he got in touch with a punishment thought that he wanted to really hurt this other person. Things like slash their tires or take them to court and really make them pay. At one point he said, "I'm going to get the blood out of this stone."
Wow, ouch.
And that was a revelation for him. And as I said, he got so agitated that he had to, we were coaching him to breathe, and he got up and got a drink of water and cleared his throat a few times and breathed some more, and then we went on with the worksheet process. And we were trying to help him understand that the upset, the rage that he was tapping into really had nothing to do with the events, the interaction between him and the person that rented the apartment from him. This really had a very old flavor to it. And so we asked him the usual questions. How does this look like the rest of your life? And where else in your life have you been disappointed by someone, or have you had to take up the slack for what somebody else did and you had to feel responsible, or you had to pay the consequences for somebody else's missteps? And it was a very powerful process for him. And by the end of the evening, end of the group, he had identified at least 3, if not 4, other worksheets for him to do. And he was much more clear about the fact that his anger, his upset, had nothing to do with the damage that was done to his apartment. It had to do with old issues and disappointments.
Well, in concert with the idea of the workshop you did last night being communication, I love what Shakespeare says. He says, "My words fly up, my thoughts remain below." And he was communicating to himself and everybody in the group, if they had the ears to hear it, and said, "Well, I'm really glad I don't have any anger about this, and I'm staying in a pretty good place with it." Is that the fact that he's using the words about anger says in that dissociated mind. When Shakespeare says, "My words fly up, my thoughts remain below," in the context of this work, it would be, my words fly up, and my dissociated mind keeps hidden everything I don't want to look at and deal with. But my words inform me about what's there. So it's such a big clue to be watching our words. And oftentimes people will jump in with, "Well, I didn't say that the way I really meant it." It's like, yes, you did. You said it exactly the way the content of your mind holds it. And so now you've got a clue into the content of your mind. And when you change the story and go, "Well, that's not what I really meant," what you're saying is, "Well, what I really want to do is keep that part in a dissociated state. I don't want to look there." And so the mind, the non-being mind, always has a story for why it won't confront its own dissociated state. And And yes, that space of love that a support group creates, that space of safety to go into that depth is just so awesomely powerful. And to drill down into the parts of the mind that are hidden, most people have no clue that, they've heard the thought, we use 5%, or we have awareness of 5%, but they have no clue about the insanity that's going on under the surface until, something major happens, and then it all comes pouring out. But using the worksheet process gives us a chance to gently drill into those parts of the minds that hold hostility and fear, and remove them without having to create crazy time around it. So that's fabulous.
Yeah, it was a wonderful, wonderful evening. And it was quite useful. I want to recommend to people that they go back and listen to the show from February 6th, I believe it was, with Magda, because having listened to that a couple times, it was easier for me to help this person identify what some of the other worksheets might be. As you dig down into and listen clearly to the words, as you were talking about the head of the Hydra, when you attack one issue and you do it successfully, or you're in the vicinity, you're going to stir up 2 or 3 others, and the heads will keep popping up, and if you're looking for them, it's very good fodder or grist for the mill to dig up more of what is generating the anger and hostility, and then dismantle it and let it go. So that's
2 or 3 or 10 worksheets from under the surface very easily. I always find that when I'm doing worksheets, if I just keep a stack of them, when I have one of those other heads pop up that's been hidden that I didn't realize was involved, I start out, a worksheet like the one you just spoke about with this gentleman, and I'm ostensibly okay with the fact that they did damage, and I'm just going to, move through this, and then all of a sudden I'm rageful about it, and then all of a sudden you get in touch with the time when my older brother raged at me because I broke something of his and it was not repairable, and then as I tap into that worksheet, I find the time where I stood back and watched Dad rage at my older brother, and I was just terrified because of the rage I saw and abuse I saw my father pour on my older brother when he broke something that belonged to Dad. It's just, these chains of events that go on, and the willingness to delve into those parts of the mind and bring them forward and make them sacred, make them, as you say, the fodder, the grist for the mill, that it turns into something awesomely powerful and healing for those who are brave enough to go there. And most people have got such a dance and such a story that they tell that they have no clue as to how to go there. And so the worksheet is just an awesome gift that comes from the Aramaic Yeshua from 2,000 years ago, and we express our appreciation for the fact that he put that together for us. So Jeannie tells us that we have a caller. Let's check in with our caller and see what's happening. 541. Area code 541, you're on the air. Tell us where you're calling from and give us a name.
Oh, hi. My name is still Julie from Ashland, Oregon.
Still Julie, like as in not moving Julie?
Not moving Julie? I like that. That's very good. Thank you. A lot is moving in me. So much is stirring. And because I'm touching upon what it truly means to be committed to this path and this work, I'm able to see it and hear it in the reflection. And I just want to comment on everyone who participated in these worksheets during the kind of the end of the year into the 2012 that David started, and I participated somewhat in. I've really noticed just in doing worksheets one day, 5 of them in one day, and what it takes to be committed and stay on that track. I'm seeing it in Dr. Tim, especially I want to mention now, but I remember seeing it in you, Michael, and David, and Jeannie when she was on, just hearing the tone of your voice just like I'm hearing my own right now. This commitment that it takes, that it is, to really follow Christ and walk in Christ, and live that way for the rest of our lives. It's just, it's a path that leads us where it leads us. And I've heard, I don't know the word, if it's rejuvenated, recharged, resurrected, but just some sort of pushing through in this family that chose to be committed to the worksheet during the end of the year into 2012. And now we're still, a family committed to this. I hear such a groundedness and a transformation and a consciousness and a clarity that's just, the way Dr. Tim is teaching right now, he's just so, one. He's just so one. He just is so tuned in. And Michael, I heard that in you as you were willing to face whatever was there for you, because you hadn't done them as much, as substantially in a while. At least I heard you say that once. And you're
right.
At a whole new level. You're just at this whole new level, and this new worksheet came from there, and it's just like we're all really moving together. And I just want you to know I'm doing my part too. And I'm so glad to be aboard.
Well, we are delighted that you are aboard, and we are delighted for, right from the first conversation we had, how willing you were to move in the direction and face and move some mountains to do it. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, lots of mountains. So even when I haven't gotten my 5 done, which I'm do 10 today, and that sounds like, I'm going to make up for how bad I was. But I've moved through that because I've looked at my commitment, and what it takes in it and what I sold out on instead last night, all my little excuses, habits, and addictions. And so they're now on my list of 10 worksheets to do today. And, and it's just like such a loving process. It's so obvious what's right in front of us to clear out. And and it just takes that willingness. And, if I found myself realizing if I was really committed to myself, what would that feel like? And it would feel like just pure joy. And so I'm purifying myself, to the joy. I feel really altered when I do these worksheets, but not with a foggy, stoned kind of feeling. It's with I don't need to see what I thought I was blaming or a victim of anymore. When I don't see that, I feel really connected to others and not afraid at all. Really neat. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Very cool. And, of course, the layers of mind that hold fogginess are the layers of mind that hold hostility and fear, and each time that comes forward in any of its forms, whether it's grief or rage or sadness or, frustration or what have you, each of those energies creates a fogginess in the mind. It actually defiles the output of the mind. If you go back to the Aramaic, you hear the words said, the eye is the lamp of the soul. If the light for you is darkness, how deep will your darkness become? And from the Greek translation, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But in Aramaic, what he was saying is the perceptual output of your mind, the small awareness that you have between your ears, your reality is meant to be a light or a guide for your journey through the world, through your relationships, through your living your life. And if your lights are out, if darkness for you becomes the guide, then you're in trouble. And each different form of darkness from the generations becomes another fog, creates another level of unclarity and fogginess of mind. And each layer cleared out literally shifts and changes the chemistry of the brain. and allows us to get back to the point where we live with our lights on all the time. It's like, and then when you face a situation that brings up something that contains hostility or fear, you've practiced and used a tool so you can clean up the perceptual mind in an instant. It's kind of like, you're driving down the road in a car and all of a sudden, a big splat of mud comes on the window. Well, many people who don't know how to clean their own minds, who won't use forgiveness, walk around with a big splat of mud in their perceptual minds, and they wonder why the world looks so brown and messy and troubled. And when they take up and pick up the tool of forgiveness, it washes off that mud. And as you become practiced at cleaning up the crusts and the layers from the generations, each new splat that comes forward, and you've got the skill, you can move it faster and easier and come to a higher state of clarity, a higher state of vitality, of aliveness, of joy, of creativity. That's the benefit of 5 a day for 40 days, for starters. So I think I hear you describing how that's working in your life, and it's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, what a wonderful path to follow. To stand in myself as I walk. Walk with Christ, and walk into a Christ life. Anyway, I'm being kind of symbolic and all of that. I still have my work to do, so I'm not going to just numb myself with all these wonderful feelings because
notice the language notice your language informs you of the desire to numb yourself. Mm-hmm. And so you might want to do a worksheet or two around numbing yourself and clear that inclination out, because those unconscious dynamics that inform us through our words are in the process of moving into a control space. And when they're caught in their tracks and forgiven, removed, then all of a sudden that's where that next level of clarity comes from. So that's
okay, that's good. Thanks. Wow.
So Dr. Tim, do you have anything to share with Julie?
Well, it was a good catch. What you were just saying about her words to numb herself, and it follows after we were just talking about that very thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I can see that there were instances of numbing myself, so I will do some worksheets on that. Thank you. It's so laced. But,
cool.
It's not overwhelming when you stay with it and touch.
Exactly. As you continue to do your work, it becomes just first nature to do it, and it's an easy flowing thing rather than people who avoid until it becomes such overwhelm that they just can't maintain even the slightest speck of sanity. And so that's where we want to head. David, I haven't heard your sweet voice yet. Do you have anything to share with us? Anything to share with Julie or Tim?
Let's see if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear, sir.
Good. As long as there's not much background noise. I'm traveling to Heartland as I speak, and so I'm just being conscious of the background noise. I think, everything is what you're saying, about listening to ourselves, listening to the voice that's inside, and the words that get expressed outside will give the clues as what's really going on underneath of there. And it's always a big challenge for me to stay conscious of and observe my language. I was speaking with Terry this morning, and I actually was introduced to that concept back in 1990, and I'm just now grasping each day to recognize and to observe myself more and more about my language, what I'm doing, the stories that I'm saying, the visuals, and even watching myself. It's a little exercise I was invited to do, to step out of myself, watch myself as I'm doing what it is that I'm doing. The example right now, when I'm driving, I can dialogue with myself. I have my hand on the steering wheel. I'm sitting on the gas with my right foot. I'm holding the phone in my hand. And as I start to practice in that way and use that exercise, I get to recognize and be aware of the underlying messages and so forth. So it is a process with it. I did have a thought when it seems appropriate to ask you, Michael, if you might speak on your realities and your perceptions around Lent, since there's several people that have committed to doing 5 worksheets for 40 days, then it might be a nice place to interject what Lent is around, what Lent, the origin of Lent, based on your experience, and for those people that aren't aware of it, that they might have some information around it, as they may support them in making the decision to taking on 5 worksheets for the next 40 days.
Yeah, good thought. Let me just check first. The first 4 or 5 minutes of the show, was the show blank? Was there nothing there? Somebody texted us or went into the chat room.
7 minutes. 7 minutes.
Okay.
That's actually what I did the first 7 minutes. So we'll repeat some of that and the whole idea of Lent and this idea of awakening, of Easter. If you look at the root of the meaning of the word Easter, it actually comes from a Greek deity, and it's the god of fertility and the awakening or the birth into new life. And the 40 days of Lent leading up to that is a time frame where, if one chooses to yield the habits that take us out of the true life we were designed to live. There's a cool piece in the book of Luke that where a man steps up to Yeshua and says, "How do I inherit eternal life?" And Yeshua, instead of answering that question, he turns it back to him and he says, "Well, how do you read it? What's the law tell you?" And so the bottom line is, the man says, you've got to love when you think of the Creator, neighbor, that you have to love. And Yeshua says to him, you spoke the truth. And then he says to him, do this and you shall live. And so what he in essence is saying to the man who's asking about eternal life is, sir, you're dead. Didn't you know that? You have no need or business to ask about eternal life because you're not even alive yet. Here, let me give you a clue. Here's how you get a human life. You live the first law. This has got nothing to do with the dictatorial leader who says you have to do what I tell you to do. He gave the key to how to reclaim your human life, and that is when you think of the Creator, when you think of neighbor, then, and neighbor means, in Aramaic, anybody that you think about, when you tap into those objects of attention, you maintain the condition of love in your mind. And as you do, you get to live a human life. And so he's telling the man that the question he asked was an inappropriate one. The real question is, for most people, how do I get a life? The average person in our culture, my offering is, the average person in our culture is dead by the age of 4. The world comes in with its hostilities and fears, puts its thumbprints on us, and especially when the stress is up and the chips are down, love is gone, and what we have are tantrums and rage and all kinds of manipulations and machinations trying to control what's going on, and the cost of doing that is the human life that we were given. And so if one is functioning out of hostility or fear at pretty much every turn, then there's not much human life in them. They're dead. What they need is a resurrection. So the real inner meaning of the whole Easter story is, are we willing to go into the tomb? What's the tomb? That's going into your own dead flesh that carries the generations of hostility and rage and fear and grief and vengeance and hatred, et cetera, that you go into that space and you create a transformation. That is, you elevate the hostility and fear to awareness in the presence of love, and by doing so, you transmute those unconscious energies. And out of that comes a new life. Out of that comes a resurrection. And the resurrection is into recognizing ourselves as this awesome active presence of love rather than as this whining, complaining, non-being self that most people live in. I love what George Bernard Shaw says when he talks about the non-being mind. He says those people who live as a, let me get my brain there, a feverish, selfish clod of ailments, complaining that life will not devote itself to making us happy. And so when one lives in that non-being self, there's no human life in them. They're already dead. If you decide to go into your own tomb, and we're going to suggest you spend 40 days, 5 times a day going into your tomb, that is what you call your body-mind unit. If life is not the prime inhabitant there, then we're going to invite you to go into the tomb, and we're going to invite you to start shoveling. And we're going to invite you to shovel out all the garbage of hostility and fear, literally removing it and the very capacity to even produce any form of hostility or fear from your physiology. That's what we're going to work with you on. That's what we're here to support you in, to move through that. And then 40 days out, 40 days in the desert. The desert is just another code word for the unconscious. 40 days in the desert is extremely powerful and will transform your life. And so that's our invitation to you. So anybody who's willing, we would be delighted if you would join us, today being the first day of Lent, and doing 5 worksheets a day for the next 40 days. And know that there is a planetary support system, that there are people all over the globe who are picking up this challenge and creating a space of the active presence of love and tapping into that space at least 5 times a day to create support for each of us in doing that process and resurrecting from the old world of hostility and fear. So that's our invitation to you, and that's our lead up to Easter and the awakening of our true human lives and experiencing that true human life in every cell of your physiology. If you're not, then your physiology is in trouble. If you choose to go into your physiology and remove what never belonged, then your physiology will go back to its natural state, the awesome active presence of love. So Jeannie tells me that we have a caller, and 517, welcome to the show. Is this Rex?
It sure is. Good afternoon.
Welcome, sir. Good to hear your voice.
Wonderful explanation, Michael. I appreciate it a lot. It's just great to hear, to be able to tune in every day and to hear, speech and sharing and Tim's ideas and David's ideas and everybody's ideas. So I just am very much in appreciation. I feel blessed to be able to actually just tune in and have this as a constant reminder of, closer to who we really are and reflecting that. I also wanted to acknowledge... The world doesn't
give us much support for that in the normal intercourse of events.
No, it doesn't, and it is great that we are creating more of it all the time, and it's becoming
Absolutely.
Easier and easier, and so I appreciate that. Just as a little update and a thanks to you and especially Julie for being the first person that actually stepped forward and said, you know what, I'm going to do this. And as I was listening to her appear to work a little resistance in herself and say, and then she said, yes, I will. And then I thought, well, gosh, that sounds like a great idea. And then Jeannie mentioned the Lent, and I went, oh, that's great. And then all of a sudden I was inspired. And I'm excited because, Julie, if you're still listening, I really appreciate you being willing to make that level of commitment, because I'm going to share with you how that commitment has inspired so many others. We now have, in my group of people that I've been able to contact, my clients and some of the people that are in our support group that we have once a month, we have right now 12, possibly one more coming today, but 13 people that have committed to do the 40-day with us, with all of us. As a matter of fact, we've had every single person that I have invited said, yes, I'd love that. I'm so glad you decided to, or you called me, you thought of me. And I think
Well,
go ahead.
Rex, I've found the same thing. It's like everybody, which is kind of a new level. I've found that the same thing has been happening with virtually everybody I've asked, every single person. And I've even found that the married people have been saying yes. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's exciting. So it's a big shift. And, I love to, I enjoy being acknowledged, but I also very much so love acknowledging. And Julie being, having her own process and what she's going through has been an inspiration. And I looked at how, you've reached out and talked to a number of people, and I'm sure David is, and I'm hearing Tim is, and I know Jeannie is, and then Rex is, and then all of a sudden we've got Julie doing that, and Nene, and all of a sudden you've got all these people reaching out, extending our beingness, and then expressing it in the form of, invitation and love, and it's exciting, and I'm excited, and I just wanted to share that and express my gratitude for being a part of it.
Yeah, Rex, I appreciate your appreciation, and I appreciate the decades of work that you've put into your process and your family system and moving things forward. I had the thought of calling Mitzi to invite her on board to do the 5 a day. I don't know if she's doing that at this point, but it would be awesome if she were to join the process too, if she's not already.
Well, she absolutely is. She had her last 40-day cycle. She just finished, or is finishing on Wednesday of next week. And so I was telling her of all the people that jumped on board, and she was already doing it. So I didn't formally say, honey, why don't you jump in with us if you'd like? And she said, well, you didn't ask me. And I said, well, honey, I already thought you were doing it. I didn't, I didn't know. Would you like to be a part of it? She goes, well, yeah. And so now she's recommitted for another 40 days, and she's not even going to break the cycle, so it'll almost be the 80 days consistent for her, which is, and I'm glad you brought that up, Michael, because that's the other piece of gratitude that I've been experiencing. Watching her do the process, and I was in between the 40 days because I did it toward the end of the year with everyone else, and then I've still been doing worksheets every day, but I haven't been committed to doing 5 a day, and you know what I'm talking about. And then watching her do it and watching her be so discipled in her intention and focused on it. And some of the things she was doing is carrying a pad with her. And anytime she would get triggered, she'd write down, the trigger and make little notes. And then she'd have her list of worksheets. And I always noticed that she had, a page of like 7 or 8 or even 10 different items that she could do her worksheets on. So I said, well, that's a great idea. So I started doing that. And I started noticing just, I've been so inspired by watching her change so many of her realities and just doing marvelous and experiencing, I happen to be blessed with the benefit of feeling the love of her experiencing her own divinity, and it's like, cool, that's fun to be around, So, yes, and I'm glad you mentioned it. She's on board, and we've got a group of people, and it may even get larger, but we'll see. I'm sure eventually it'll get larger, but we definitely have 12, possibly 13 right now, and we're excited about it.
Well, that's really, really powerful, and I'm delighted to hear that. And, I know that she's been going through and handling some pretty heavy-duty issues, so for her commitment to move to that level is just awesome. And, several years ago, David challenged Terry Bowling, who has shared this on the show, so I'm not telling the details out of school, but Terry had been doing this work with his family for a period of about 5 or 6 years, and he came to Heartland, spent a year and a half there, and when he first got there, David challenged him to do 1 worksheet a day for 40 days, and so Terry took that challenge, and then David upped it, you ready to do 5? And so Terry went to 5, and for a period of about 3 years, Terry was doing 5 worksheets a day.
Wow.
And actually there are 3 or 4 people that David is associated with. But Terry called into the show back several months ago and was in a very excited state. He had just moved back to Asheville, North Carolina, where his family is. He's got a support group in Asheville. And he called into the show, and he was seeing such shifts and changes in relationship to his children in particular. He and his wife were in the process of divorcing and, being sane about doing that. And he was seeing such changes in his children and in himself and their relationship, which was something that he just really wanted so much. He'd had a family history of some pretty heavy-duty stuff. And he called into the show one day and said, Michael, I just want you to know I'm seeing such changes in my family system as a result of the 5-day. And he's been doing it for 3 years. He said, I'm up in my commitment to 10 a day.
Wow. I do remember that show.
So, it's so awesome to watch that happen. And there was a story that Terry told about. He had been out doing something. His former wife, or soon-to-be former wife, was traveling, and so he was staying with the kids, and he came home, and the house was a wreck. And that brought up some realities for him that were kind of painful. And his son stepped in and said, Dad, and his son has done Laws of Living, where we do a lot of work with regulatory speech and goals and such. And it's like, Dad, it seems to me that maybe you've got too many goals and you're overstressed. Would you be willing to sit down? His son is now, I guess he's 13. His son is like, would you be willing to sit down and go through and look at that with me? And his son is his support team for healing. And it was awesome. And, previously there had been a big raging fight and, clean the house or else, and other threats and that. And instead, Dad gets supported by son, goes off to bed, and when he gets up in the morning, the house is totally, completely spick and span from one end to the other.
Wow.
Instead of, are we going to do battle royal? Folks, if you've got kids and you haven't handed this tool to your kids yet, start with it, work with it. The rewards are beyond monumental.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, and thank you, everyone. And I feel very blessed to be a part of this process and part of the family. And I love hearing all of you speak and share. And Tim, you've always got such wonderful comments,
cool.
And David and everyone. So God bless everybody, and go team go.
All right, Rex. I have a thought. Just one more thought before we go. We've got several callers on the line, but one more thought before we go is I'd invite you to maybe look at upping the worksheet from monthly to at least bi-monthly, or bi-weekly, I should say.
I'm not sure what you mean.
I mean that you might want to, instead of just doing the support group. Tim has been doing his support group, Dr. Tim,
the Mindset support group
once a week for 6 years. And the miracles he's getting, of course, you've heard him talk about many times. So I'm just suggesting you might want to look at maybe doing twice a month instead of monthly, or maybe weekly, or anyway, just a thought.
Well, and it's a good thought, and just to reflect that thought, it's fun. This is part of why it's fun to be a part of a family of conscious people, because what I've observed is I might get an inspiration, a thought that trickles in, and then you or a friend or Mitzi or someone or myself would find myself speaking it. And that's exactly what you're doing. So I have been considering that, and I will give it serious consideration further. And it is powerful. So I'll definitely give that some thought. And I was leaning in that direction, so we'll see how that unfolds. I'll do a little prayer.
It sounds like you're really developing a nice community there, and a more regular gathering might be useful. So awesome. And Jeannie says we've got several callers, so we're going to head on to the next caller. And Rex, glad to have you on the team. Blessings. We appreciate you. Area code 828, you're on the air.
Well, hi, this is Magda calling.
Well, hey there, Miss Magda. How are you? Your ears must ring a lot as we talk about that worksheet that you did a couple of weeks ago. That was so awesome.
I heard that earlier, which is what stimulated my call, because I never have made the commitment to do 5 a day. Not truly. I really have fudged on that. And and that's because of heavy-duty resistance to digging deep, drilling down. After having that experience with you, Michael, doing that worksheet on the show, I have really, really been honing that skill of drilling down. And
awesome, isn't it?
yeah, I love it. And so what's happened is that I also took your suggestion to have clean worksheets sitting on the side, ready to go, and having switched from making little notes about, well, I think I need to do a worksheet on this later or some other time, little notes here or there that have in the past conveniently become lost, switching from that to actually beginning a worksheet and then setting that aside for another time, and then when something else comes up in the process of doing the original worksheet, to start a second worksheet and, the third and the fourth, whatever it takes. I have found two things. When I started, that means I've made a commitment to do that worksheet. They don't get lost like those little notes I used to make.
Right.
It feels so different. And the other thing is, it's really helped me to break through my resistance. Somehow I'm very clear about, okay, this is what I need to do. It's just clearer, and there is that feeling of commitment. So that's why I wanted to call to really let all the listeners know that is a wonderful and powerful suggestion.
It really is.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it really is fun and exciting when you see, some of the stuff you touch into, it certainly isn't Dr. Feelgood and not necessarily fun to work through, but the fun of starting to catch yourself and catch those deeper parts of the mind, the hidden parts that are impacting decisions and behavior, it just, it really becomes a pretty exciting process.
Exciting is a great word for it, Michael. And because of the excitement this has generated with me, and also the excitement I've been hearing on this show today and a few days ago about doing the 40 worksheets, my second reason for calling then is to let you know that I'm making the commitment to doing 5 worksheets a day for the next 40 days. Yeah. I'm going to join the group.
If you would like me to be your support person, I would love to get a text from you every day just saying, got them done.
Oh, that'd be great. Yes.
Fabulous.
I accept that.
Well, I am excited and delighted for you and for Chuck and for Heartland and for the whole planet. The energy space that's opening is really, really awesome. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you. And I will be texting you. Well, I won't text you today. I'll tell you right now I've done my 5.
Okay.
So,
very cool.
I'll text you tomorrow.
Right. Okay, blessings. We'll look forward to hearing from you tomorrow.
Blessings. Love you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Area code 970. You're on the air.
Hey, Michael and Jeannie and crew. It's Carrie in Colorado. And
how are things in Colorado?
Good. I have a really quick question I'd love to get some input on. I know there's just a couple minutes left, but at the beginning of the show you said something about a letter of responsibility, writing a letter of responsibility. Some people in the group were doing that. And my heart just went, anyway, I'd just like to know a little more if that would be a good thing to do. And I guess what I have a real crux issue because this recent relationship that I was in, the person kept saying to me repeatedly over a long period of time, you're just not willing to take responsibility for your part in this. And I wasn't not willing to take responsibility. We just did not have communication skills to be able to, do what we're doing right here at this level. And but I know that
you can't function out of brain cells you don't have.
Yeah, that's a good reminder. That's a good just relief at least. And but I thought, should I be writing that person a letter of responsibility? And if so, what would that include? And I know, as you said that, there's part of me that wants to blame the other person. I mean, it's just like I can tell there's some huge, deep well of something here that is tapping into.
It's genetic.
Genetic, for sure.
genetic. That's what we came in with. That's the whole. I mean, you look at the whole language. Our workshop, the workshop that Dr. Tim was referring to, that came out of, is called Communication. Did you hear what I think I said? And the whole culture's language is the language of projection, is you made me, as though we're not responsible for what's going on inside of us. And or people will say, they'll say the words, well, I know this is mine, but then when you said, and they don't know it's theirs at all. That's just a belief system on the top of it. It has fluff on the top of the head. But when you start drilling down into your own dissociated mind, the opposite is true. And so I don't know. I'm trying to remember what DVDs. Do you have DVDs? Do you have communication?
No, I don't, but I could get it. I was wanting to get that and about the stress you need, getting the stress you need. I was thinking those two might be good, but whatever you suggest.
Okay. Well, that's and we move into the responsibility communication. And in that DVD, we read a letter that a young man wrote to his father who was challenged with alcohol. This is a kid who was an alcoholic, had been through several dryouts and, an AA member and really working. And he writes a responsibility communication letter to his father where he's owning what's his and inviting his father to look at what's his. So it's a powerful process. And we are down to about 20 seconds, so I'm just going to invite anybody that's in the Ocala area to come and join us. And if we can support you more with that tomorrow, Carrie, we'd be happy to have you on the call first thing. And the other callers, if you'd shout in early, we'd love to start the call out with a conversation with everybody. And we appreciate you, especially if you're willing to jump in and do that 5 a day for 40 days. And we join you in having the best year yet of your eternal life. Blessings.
Thank you for listening to Mind Shifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife Jeannie, who present the internal Aramaic process of forgiveness. Michael and Jeannie are here every Monday through Friday on Earth Angels Radio. For more on Michael and Jeannie, please visit www.whyagain.com. That's www.whyagain.com.
Evolving continuously.